Hey there. Thanks for joining and being interested in exploring your way to get from network engineering to cybersecurity. My name is Bjorn Voitel, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to share my story and my experiences with you. And hopefully you can take some valuable information out of this webinar, which could help you on your journey. It doesn't matter if you want to go for a new employment opportunity or take the big step and go for freelancing or self-employment. Most of these steps are generic enough to fit all needs. So if you have the opportunity to transition to cybersecurity, the GDPR, especially in the European Union, does provide a foothold for you for that. As the GDPR also concentrates for a good part on the technical and organizational measures, all these things have to be audited by these companies. So if you are living here in Germany or in the European Union, this can also provide a very good opportunity to land in cybersecurity. Also, from the COVID side, there are some changes, and although the job market in overall is not very good now in the whole world, it doesn't seem to have such a high effect on the job market in European Union or in the US. So cybersecurity professionals are still needed, and cybersecurity professionals are still needed, and it will be a high demand despite of COVID, or even though we have COVID. I will come to that later on during the presentation. So let's start. Something about me first. As I've mentioned, I have first-hand experiences on this subject. After army time, I was working at a computer company building PCs, and there getting in first contact with installing simple networks. Shortly after I began studying, some students asked me to join their computer team at the Department of Economics. There I got my hands onto some more complex network scenarios, so I decided to invest in myself and obtain some certifications in network administration. And it was not long that I also had the first contact with cybersecurity there. As a university, you are fortunate to have high bandwidth and large hard disk capacities. Mainly on weekends or in the time between Christmas and New Year's Eve, some servers became hacked. The attackers didn't want to get a hold onto the scientific research results, but to distribute their films and copied software. I soon thereafter began wondering how they did that and how it could have been prevented. So I turned to getting into cybersecurity, and while still studying at the university, I obtained my first certification, which happened to be the Certified Ethical Hacker version 5 back then. And that lay the foundation for everything which was coming after that. After I got my degree in business administration and information systems, I was given the opportunity to stay at the university as head of IT for the Department of Economics, and I worked there for 6 years. During that time, I wanted to get more information on cybersecurity, not only on network security, but also on more wider aspects, like physical security, access control concepts, vulnerability scanning, and of course, privacy. Okay, to cut a long story short, I obtained several other certifications during that time, and I decided to go for self-employment then. Right now, I own 3 companies and do consulting work for privacy and information security, and I am a pen tester. Apart from being a speaker enlisted in the speaker portfolio for a large German bank, I'm also an instructor teaching cybersecurity courses. From my experience, if you are also wanting to start as a pen tester, the experience you have from being in the networking field before, it will make it much easier for you to get into that field as well. So you have also, if you are going also if you are into audit or if you are into forensics, knowing how networks work will give you the opportunity to deep dive into these topics more easily, as you are already familiar with log files, probably reading these log files, reading network network statistics, etc. As you have joined this webinar, I assume you have some kind of networking background. So I further assume you are more or less familiar with the topics on the right-hand side. The areas are an example on how deep your knowledge may be on the different areas. With green meaning you are quite comfortable on the subject, and red meaning you have kind of heard about it, but never really deep dived into it. For the one or the other, the colors may change depending on your work history or experience. But the point here is you are familiar with the fundamental knowledge on how communication is performed over networks. This lays the foundation to find a step into the world of cybersecurity, as most critical and high-risk vulnerabilities come from being remotely exploitable. If you have your networking skills, and one thing which I would like to mention is you should not have the fear of going onto the command line when you want to go into cybersecurity. Many of the interesting fields here, like pen testing, you have to do some manual commands on the command line. So if you are not familiar with that right now, I would suggest going into that. As the previous speaker has already mentioned, we are seeing a larger demand in cybersecurity professionals. This demand is projected to not being satisfied in a 10-year range. In addition, we are also seeing a wide area of job opportunities and roles from where you can get a foot in the door. This splash of multiple roles and areas, of course, also has a downside. Newcomers may feel overwhelmed and not having an idea on where to start. Also, reading some job offers in cybersecurity and their job portals may make you think, gosh, how should someone have that much knowledge? So, for transitioning to a new work area, you need a systematic step-by-step approach. As Bill Hogan said, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Let's start on the elephant with step 1. Identify your areas of interest or areas where your knowledge is strong. Why should you do that, you might ask? Reason is simple. Walking the cybersecurity way, you have to be prepared for lifelong learning as new technology, new attack vectors, and new risks emerge. You will have to motivate yourself to stay on the track and follow up with the latest developments. From my experience, this is only possible if you don't see your job primarily as a source for income. If you are looking at your strong areas, the chances are good that you may enjoy doing what you are currently doing. If not, you are transitioning anyway. Just find the things you like to do. I've seen a lot of people fail only because they selected an area where they thought a lot of money can be made, but where it turned out they hated doing their job. You should write down your interests and map them to specialized job roles in that area. Also, the speaker before gave you some examples on that. Having identified a good role, it would be best to go for that as a starting point. The question whether you go as a full-time employee or a freelancer or maybe a hybrid depends on your personal situation and risk appetite. From my experience, being self-employed needs a good portion of self-discipline and family support. We can make a whole webinar on that topic alone, so I'll leave this choice up to you for now. Step 2. Make an analysis on where your knowledge gaps are to perform the desired role. Best solution is to make a list of skills needed and a scale of 1 to 10 and rate yourself on these scales. Be honest with that. This is not an exam, but a mature way to identify areas where you have the possibility to improve. As a side effect, for some job applications, they want the applicant to fill out such ratings, so you have that right at hand when needed. If you identify any gaps, simply write them down. Also, if you have taken a quick look on how these gaps can be closed, write the solutions down as well, and they will be needed for step 3, learning, training, and certification. There are several types of learning. If you are like me, then you may go for the cheapest option, and that is self-study. This means you can simply use free online resources and/or buy a book or 2 on that subject and go from there. Lately, also due to COVID-19, there has been a rise on web-based trainings being available for a reasonable price. Drawback there is that you are limited in interacting with the trainer, and these are often pre-recorded. If you want to get the best results, I would recommend going for in-person attendance of courses where applicable. But as I mentioned, this completely depends on your personal preferences for learning. After the course, there may be a certification opportunity where you can sit an exam and acquire a certificate. As this is an optional point and not necessary in itself, I would highly recommend that, as it shows a possible employer that you have the knowledge in that area and it has been verified by a neutral instance. Also, I would recommend going for any basic certifications first and then build on that knowledge. That way, you can clearly see an improvement, get more self-confidence, and from that, get into the habit of taking exams. If you have acquired your first certificates and closed some knowledge gaps, it may be time to open up for neighboring areas of the certs. For example, if you have just taken a cert for blue teaming, you might want to also have a look on the other, more offensive side, namely red teaming. Here again, keep your interests at heart. Taking courses or reading books will provide you with the knowledge needed to perform certain tasks. But in order to perform these tasks to the best of your ability, you will surely need some practice. Through practice, you will gain experience, meaning you will identify any issues and how to get around them, or have a job done in far less time than without any practice. While you can get some practice on the job, you may want to consider building up a lab, usually consisting of virtual machines, or take or rent a virtual lab with pre-installed machines. It's usually a good idea to keep an eye on the training market as well as job offers. on what they offer and what they demand, as training companies often freshen up their material or come up with new certifications. While doing the preparation work for acquiring certifications, goal setting, especially for more advanced and complex certifications, is a very good idea. You will define a goal, for example, that you will get certified on a subject or get a degree. And you will also define a definitive time when you will have this goal achieved. You project your situation into the future and imagine yourself as having already reached this goal. Using backwards planning, you will then come up with the milestones necessary to achieve it. This is kind of a rough plan. For example, if you wanted to take a certification where there is a theoretical and a practical part, you may consider the following milestones. Buy courseware or books. Prepare for the theoretical exam. Sit for the theoretical exam. Practice for the practical exam. Sit for the practical exam. Have certification achieved. These milestones can then be subdivided or broken down into smaller tasks. I would suggest also thinking about micromanaging these tasks, for example, even going for partial preparation steps like reading chapter 1 or even reading pages X to Y. And again, I would highly recommend think on paper. Write your plan down. Make a checklist of what you want to do. You have a 25% higher productivity rate just by working from a list. And you can also track your achievements, as the most fun part of having a list is to check the tasks you have finished off. Take action on your goals in a persistent way. Make it a habit of working on your goals every day. It may be working off your checklist from the last step, or if you don't have anything on your list, then just simply read some news blogs or news sites about cybersecurity. Or follow certain experts on Twitter and read their articles. That way, you can also stay on track with the latest threats and developments in your field. Remember, do something every day to move the needle forward. In my first days of being self-employed, I also had a hard time for getting to new customers. I was very young, not known very well by that time, and a more or less technical guy. But then a friend and personal consultant stepped up to me and gave me a very good advice. He said, don't introduce yourself as John Doe, being XYZ certified and selling privacy and information security services. Simply state what you really do. You solve problems, so you are the problem solver. And that was one of the best advices I got in my life, and which I want to pass on to you. Simply ask yourself, why am I on the payroll? Or why does a customer hire me? People spending their money to get you a job all have some kind of problem, which they think you can fix. So apart from being a good network firewall administrator, you should be able to identify the problem the business owner has. This may be being compliant to a regulatory requirement, or making sure their servers are available and not prone to distributed denial of service attacks. Make a list of possible solutions and present them to management. Help them decide what solution would be the best fit to meet their business goals. This will raise your reputation as a real problem solver, and I can guarantee you that they will come back to you. So now you have some certs and have taken some trainings. What do you do now? How do you apply for a new job? Simply search the job and project portals and see what comes up? Yes, that's one way and it might work. But as the cybersecurity market is currently near to empty, many headhunters and project brokers will search the web for individuals far before the job description is even published. You could easily be in a position where these guys come to you rather than you come to them. For that, you have to be visible. Make a good profile page on LinkedIn or some other business social media site and have it filled out with as much detail as possible. Name how long you have experience in certain fields or with a certain job role or having done some certain projects. It may also be a good idea to go on social media sites like Facebook or Twitter and have a profile there as well. Short warning though, those social media sites offer a lot of possibilities to spend time on them like games, etc. You don't want to be known as a gamer on these sites, but as a cybersecurity professional. So I would recommend not fall for their games and spend your valuable time there. You may also, if you like writing, share your experiences or research results in articles or blogs and have these linked to your personal business social media profile, which will also put you in the light of a serious cybersecurity professional. Naming that, I will quickly have a quick review of the point from the last slide where it compared certifications to experience. If you have any certificates, you can be proud of it. It is a sign of maturity to celebrate your achievements and share them with others. For me, it is also no problem to have some of my highest ranking certificates beside my name, and also in the description of the social network, of course. Don't fear getting into more complex projects or having responsibility as a project leader. You'll get the opportunity to connect with other people who can open doors for you which you couldn't open by yourself alone. When we talked about being the problem solver, it is good to speak the language of the operational teams as well as management. If you can connect both worlds, you can be literally the interface whom everyone likes to talk to and understand their requirements and can communicate that to the other party. I would also recommend getting further experience on your job you're already doing. Maybe invite another colleague and get in touch with them and see if you can share some insights and informations with them. This will also get you in the habit of teaching others. Teaching others is also a professional way to learn something new yourself. As I said, I'm an instructor as well. If I teach something, I always come up with something new. And this is also especially true if I interact with the students, because they ask questions where I probably also have not seen it myself from that side. And this also gives me new insight into subjects I thought I have known for very long. And the last step is become an expert in your field. An expert stays on top of the current development by attending conferences, seminars, and workshops. Experts are also connected to other thought leaders of their industry. Being recognized as an expert brings you the opportunity to hold presentations and speeches at conferences, which also leads to more visibility in the cybersecurity community. On the last point, I would like to remind you of a few things. As I mentioned throughout the webinar, your career not solely rely on your technical skills. For being successful, you have to be a real networker, literally, and connect with other people. Learn their way of talking so you can pick them up where they are and understand their problems and probably provide good solutions. On this point, I would like to thank you for attending the webinar. I really hope that you can take some of these suggestions with you, and I hope it helps you to make a smooth transition into the interesting field of cybersecurity. And maybe once you have reached your goal, I would like to hear your story. Until then, take care and stay healthy. Thank you very much.